Hey everyone, welcome to episode 6 of Mike's Movie Talk, the show where we talk about movies. I'm Mike Myers, and I have two very special guests with me today. I've got Sachal Denney and Nolan Davidson, and today we're going to be talking about A Clockwork Orange. Now this is kind of a different episode than before. As you can see, I've got two guests here, and you guys are really big fans of this movie. You let me know. So, and it's also a little different because I hadn't seen this movie before I, planned the episode. So, and that was a surprise to me because I'd heard a lot about this movie before, and I wanted to see it for a long time, and it really surprised me, and I have some mixed feelings about it. So, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think too. So what is Clockwork Orange? So Clockwork Orange came out in 1971. That was over 50 years ago. It's crazy to think about that. And it's directed by Stanley Kubrick, very famous director. And it's a dystopian crime film, and it follows Alex, and he's like a delinquent. He's in charge of this gang.
Crazy little boy.
He's a crazy guy.
Alex and his droogs,
Alex and his droogs. Yeah.
Get a little bit of old ultra violence.
Oh yeah, of course. So, he's part of this gang. They go on little ultra violent adventures, I guess you could say. And he gets captured by the police, and eventually he agrees to participate in a experimental procedure to
the Ludovico treatment, essentially.
Exactly. And to rid him of his violent tendencies. So it's a really cool premise, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there were some unexpected things that I saw in there that kind of caught me off guard as a first-time viewer. So I first want to jump in and talk about just like Stanley Kubrick as a director. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of him. The movies he's done, and I think like there's certain feelings that you get from a Kubrick film. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, he had done a lot of different kind of types of movies. So he had a lot of like anti-war stuff. Then he had like some like film noir kind of stuff, and then he had Spartacus. But I think that they all kind of have this kind of feel to it where you can tell that it's Kubrick either way.
Yeah.
Despite what the movies might be about. For sure.
One thing that I think is really compelling about the film is specifically its role as kind of an adaptation. Obviously, it was originally a book, and then Kubrick kind of brought it to life in a sense.
Yeah.
And I think with regards to what you said about the uneasiness, it definitely, the landscape that Kubrick crafted for the film, it does feel like very off-kilter and very slightly familiar but not comfortable at any point, which I think is really important.
This was probably his most like shocking film, like visually speaking. Most of those other films kind of like follow the traditional ways of the genre that they fit into, but this one was really just all over the place.
And it was definitely, and I have only seen, this is only my third Kubrick film that I've seen besides The Shining and 2001, but this is up there with like one of the most shocking films I've ever seen, really. Yeah. I don't know if that's true for you guys, but
yeah, it is. And I will say this was probably like the movie that got me into like Kubrick's directing style, but also just movies as a whole. Because this was kind of the first, I guess like classic. I don't know. I watched a bunch of like just sort of mainstream stuff, but then my buddy got me into this movie, and I was like really shocked by it, So I was like, I'm gonna keep watching some of this guy.
When did you first watch this movie?
I think it was like my 11th grade year in high school. Yeah. So.
Yeah, this movie is not for not for young kids. That's for sure. There's lots of stuff in here that can probably scar you.
Yeah.
If you don't wait long enough.
I mean, I remember like I'm not like as well versed in film as Sachal, but he likes to watch films a lot, and sometimes like I'll drop in like when he's watching one in the room and all. And with A Clockwork Orange, there was one night last semester where he just had it on, and I was like, yeah, I'll watch this. And it like ended up, I was so like enamored by it. I've never seen anything like it at all. It's just such a compelling premise with such an interesting style with like not just the direction, but like the narration and like just the way that the plot is conveyed is just so, I guess, idiosyncratic. It's such a like unique film. I've never seen anything quite like it.
That's a good term to describe it.
It's truly gripping. I have a pretty profound respect for the film.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
And I think getting back to like Kubrick as a director,
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely don't think that anyone could have turned, the book into something that crazy besides Kubrick.
Yeah.
And I know Nolan's read the book. I've read half of the book. Still got to finish that. But it's hard. It's really hard to say that the book is better than the film because it's his directing style.
Yeah.
I like it more. It's very shocking.
Yeah, I'm an English major, so it's a little sacrilegious to say, but like the movie is better. Like, it's just a fact.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, like it's pretty similar. There's a few things that are a little bit different, and the main difference, of course, is that like Kubrick had only had the original American release of the book, so he didn't know about the final chapter. But like honestly, the plot is way better without the final chapter. It basically negates the entire premise of the film, of like the existing plot. It's really strange. So like in that regard, I think Kubrick kind of did the story a service.
Yeah, it really changes the entire meaning whenever you take into the last chapter of the book.
What is the final chapter? I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, so basically, like after you have the scene where Alex is like, "I was cured all right." There's a final chapter where he's got like a new gang and he's like new mindset on life, and he's like not into the old ultra-violence or anything like that. And it's like
he wants to kind of like change his ways, like he matures in a sense, which is fine.
It's
but
a very safe way.
It's fine.
Oh yeah.
But it,
Yeah, it's a safe ending to a very
for sure.
provocative and I guess unusual film, or I
Yeah.
guess a book. But you know what I mean. Like I guess it was just kind of a cop out to me personally.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like for sure.
Which,
So he still has a gang, but they don't.
yeah,
what do they do?
It's a bunch of nude troops. They
If
don't
it-
even like. I don't know.
If it's not ultra violence,
Yeah,
what do you
it's
do
kinda
with a
lame.
gang?
It's kind of lame. I'm gonna go with you.
Yeah.
But because originally that chapter wasn't in the American release. The publisher was like, "Burgess, what are you doing, man? Get rid of that."
Yeah.
So that's the version that I guess Kubrick had to work off of. But yeah.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the movie, it's like, so like kind of walk me through, like help me explain it, I guess. So like does he go back to his like, because he's thinking of like the violent and the vulgar things at the end. But
He's got like, the final line in the film is, "I was cured all right," which kind of leaves it up to interpretation. Like, okay, is this truly a return to form, or is this like some sort of development? And I think that is kind of good in a sense because it brings back into the question, which is at the crux of the film, like, is it better to have the absence of choice but guarantee good as opposed to leave someone up to their own devices and see whether or not they can actually make the better choice for themselves?
Yeah.
Because obviously the downfall of Ludovico is like, yes, Alex is no longer compelled to do evil, but he has no way to even accomplish such things because he has been robbed of the human choice to do good.
He has no free will.
Right.
So it's almost like
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna get to here. You're talking about like the deeper themes behind this, because basically what happens in the experiment is that they show him all these like violent images and stuff, and so by the end, every time he even thinks about doing something like vulgar or violent, or has like any thoughts like that, he just gets like physically sick.
And along with that is they played in the movie Beethoven's Ninth, along with the.
He loves Beethoven too.
Yeah, they played that music along with other music in the background of the disturbing images and videos. So he was also turned against, music in the book, but just the ninth of the symphony in the movie. So
very. I mean, like as we're like talking about it, because about halfway through, I was like, I don't know if I really like this movie. And as we're talking about it, just even through this conversation, you really just like appreciate the craft and just like how complex and deep the movie is, It's really cool.
It's just an insane concept that I'm really glad was able to be brought to fruition in such a compelling way.
Yeah, like I was telling Nolan, if I just read the book, I don't think I'd be into the story. Like I feel like I had to see it through like a visual medium in order to be truly captured by the story, and I think that that's all Kubrick.
And the movie is so visual too.
Yeah.
That's the thing that just like draws you in. You're like, oh my god.
Right, and the thing with that is too that like obviously since it's this like faux futuristic landscape, everything is visually engaging without it being familiar. So you're really on the like kind of. You're always like looking at things and wondering like, oh, that's kind of weird, but like I dig it, And I feel like it's something that's maybe absent from the book. Like obviously there are some descriptions that kind of give you an inkling of something being a little bit off, but the film really brings it to life in a very, very interesting way.
Yeah,
that's one of the things I liked about just like the setting and just like it's almost like a silly, 1970s version of what the future might look like.
Right.
And people are like, walking around looking like David Bowie.
Yeah,
with like
the
weird
wigs and
makeup.
stuff. Yeah.
And they're going to like there's a like the milk bar or
Right.
whatever that was. You know,
Yeah.
just weird, strange stuff and just I think it was kind of just silly looking at that, but it's something that I enjoyed. You know,
Right.
the setting of that. It's
For
just-
sure. And I think like alongside the obviously the plot is
Mhm.
something that was, I think, taken pretty, I guess, sufficiently from the book. But the other thing I think the book really did well in terms of like setting up the film is the narration style.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
with
yeah.
regards to kind of Alex's monologue over the piece a lot of the time, you know, like your humble narrator, and you know, kind of,
Yeah.
oh my brothers, like repeating those lines, and
Mhm.
like the NADSAT where he has like this Russified version of English that for a lot of terms, it like it helps
slang,
to
too,
it
yeah.
helps to kind of reinforce that notion that this is kind of a mix between what we feel is familiar and what we feel is like alien,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that's really important because it's extremely difficult to kind of combine two different cultures into something that is immediately recognizable and understandable
Yeah,
with regards
yeah.
to like the made-up words that you would not really expect in an everyday film.
Mhm.
And I think that the book really set that up pretty well in terms of like giving the narration style a lot more character in terms of delivery. I think that was also
Yeah.
something that really hooked me when I first watched the film, because I was like, this is a very interesting way of going about telling a very interesting story.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like with the book just existing and
Mhm.
having the sort of the Russian English slang kind of
Mhm.
mixture, it just set up for a perfect film to be produced.
sure.
So
But suddenly I vidded that thinking was for the gloopy ones, and that the omni ones used like inspiration and what bogs ends. For now it was lovely music that came to my aid.
I think a lot of that plays into just how good of a choice that the casting for Alex is, Malcolm McDowell. I was looking up online, you know, about the casting, and the movie almost had the Rolling Stones as as the gang of delinquents, with Mick Jagger wanting to play
Is
the
that
role
true?
of Alex. That is true.
did not know
That
that.
That would have been a very different.
Yeah.
Hate to say it, I don't think it would have worked as well.
Yeah, no, because
no.
you know, if that was
Probably not a
happening,
good call, yeah.
I would just think, you know, like, oh, like the whole movie, I'd be thinking like Mick Jagger, you know.
Yeah, way to transform like a masterpiece of film into like an absolute laughing stock.
Yeah.
Like,
Just like
It just
a
took it
parody.
completely out of the movie.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know who Malcolm McDowell was before I saw the movie. I hadn't
Mhm.
seen him in anything else
Yeah.
before, and he just like draws you in because
he's perfect.
he really and he really carries like the whole movie.
Taught you much, my little droogies. Now tell me what you had in mind, Georgie boy.
Basically,
sure.
because I mean
It's his story.
It's his story,
For sure.
so it's all around him.
Mhm.
But I mean, that must have been a lot of pressure for him.
Yeah,
though.
sure.
I mean,
What I thought
He
was-
nailed it though.
oh yeah.
Yeah. What I thought was interesting about the casting though is I read somewhere that when Malcolm McDowell was asked to play Alex,
Mhm.
he actually didn't know who Stanley Kubrick was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he mistaken him for another Stanley. I think he was also director though.
Oh yeah.
which
That's
is
funny.
That's kind of cool.
Which I mean, he wasn't as well known back then, but
Yeah.
still, I think that is interesting.
Yeah.
Didn't know what he walked himself into.
Yeah.
He's like, oh god, what have I done?
Yeah. But I don't think anyone else really could have played Alex.
Yeah,
as good
no,
as
he
did.
was
Yeah.
fantastic in
Yeah,
this movie.
really good.
And I was thinking about too, like the character development, like as part of the audience, you know, you start out and you're like, oh my god, this guy's terrible, you know,
Yeah.
like I hate this guy, and then by the end, you know, you don't know if you should root for him
Mhm.
or what, and he's just going through these terrible things, and you feel bad for him almost.
Mhm.
You're like, and
Yes.
especially with like the narration too, like, oh my brothers, your humble narrator, you
Yeah.
know. You're just like, man, this guy's been through
Yeah.
so much stuff.
Right.
That's I think one of the most challenging aspects of the film that it really does well is like it puts us on Alex's level in a sense.
Yeah.
Like we feel like he's kind of just a dude, even though
Yeah.
he's done so many like very violent things at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
Like we see him through his entire journey, and we follow him alongside it. And then when he's no longer able to have his like own volition and free will, we're like, oh crap, dude. Like
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
that one scene of him when he's looking off the bridge after he's gotten out of Ludovico treatment and his parents kind of kicked him out essentially.
Oh yeah.
That was also heartbreaking.
That scene, I really think it like that's the turn. Like that's what makes us think, oh, well, now I kind of feel bad for him. You know,
Yeah,
now I kind of
yeah.
sympathize with him because he's been released to society
Uh-huh.
and no one wants him. And I think there's just like this look on his face that just like it's like really captures his internal feelings for sure.
Yeah, there's like that guy that was living with
Yeah,
him. And
Joe.
He's like, Joe, and they're
Joe.
like, well, we can't just kick Joe out. I was like, what are you even
It's like
doing?
the ultimate
That?
betrayal.
I
His
know.
mom's like crying, and he's like just walks out. Like, what? I mean,
Meanwhile, Joe doesn't care. He just sat up there
Yeah.
like,
yeah, he's like, you're not a son to them. Why are you
Yeah.
living up in your room?
And then they let a snake go too. His pet
Yeah.
snake.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
what
Basil.
happened to the snake?
Basil died. He had a bit of an
Yeah.
accident.
Yeah.
An accident. I'm sure they just threw him out after he was
Yeah.
after Alex got locked up.
Poor, in moments like that, you're like, God, poor guy.
I know.
Which you'd never think, in
At
the
the
first,
start, yeah.
in the first like 20 minutes of the movie, you're like, oh my God, this guy's
Yeah.
this evil person
Yeah,
in the
right.
world, But I think that like total change of like how the audience feels about the character is just really interesting, Another thing I put on here, I was like, I'll never think of Singing in the Rain the same way again.
Yeah.
Oh my
That
God.
that was like a good touch. I really
Yeah.
think it was because whenever I first saw it, I was like, "This is really weird," and I understand.
Yeah,
I'm also
yeah.
not going to think of that, especially after they played it in the credits too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a weird part. That was weird.
Yeah.
I thought it was good though.
It's really like a juxtaposition. Like you think of that song and you're like, oh, like the musical,
Yes.
and just like happy feelings,
Upbeat.
and then they juxtapose it with just like the awful like sexual violence that's
Yeah.
happening in that scene. You're like, what's going on here?
Right.
And then when he comes back, after getting kicked out of his home, and he like has to go and find that same place by accident,
Oh,
and he's
yeah.
singing it in the bathtub, and
Yeah.
that's when Frank
Yeah,
realizes
yeah.
like,
Why would he sing that in the bathtub?
I know.
I didn't ever heard that.
lapse of judgment, what can I say?
Yeah.
At the stormy clouds chase everyone from the place. Come on with the rain, I've a smile on my face.
But I did think that was interesting. He came back to that same. I was like, oh my God, it's the same house.
All right.
And it had been how long did he stay in prison? Like 2 years?
Yeah, it's about 2 years.
Yeah.
He was sentenced for more, I think. Like
Yeah,
significantly more.
but the reason he
obviously
accepted
was pretty much-
Ludovico was because it was a way for him to get out.
Yeah, yeah.
And then whenever he returned, actually, goodness, what was his name? The buff guy that we were talking about.
Julian?
Julian.
Yeah.
The old guy's assistant, who had to help
Oh,
him
yeah,
since,
yeah, yeah,
since his
yeah.
wife
Yeah.
died.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He actually, David Prowse, he was the
Darth Vader.
body for Darth Vader. Yeah.
Wow, that was him?
Yeah,
I
that was
never
him.
knew that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty.
I was like,
Fun
God,
fact.
that guy's like a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Kind of an interesting match there
Yeah.
between him and Frank.
Yeah. Another thing, that I wanted to talk about, which is a huge topic, and especially when it comes to this movie, is just like the controversy that was behind this movie when it came out, and still is for some people that that view this and just like are repulsed by it.
Right. I think it was banned in the UK for quite a
Yeah,
while.
Stanley Kubrick
Yeah.
pulled it from theaters in the UK.
Yeah, which is when the director himself pulls it from theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh boy,
Yeah.
something's in there.
It's pretty severe.
But it's easy to forget, like, this movie came out like 1971, in like the new Hollywood movement where there's movies that are, experimenting with more violence, and that's just a really big shift from like the movies of the 50s and like early 60s, And this is like, I think this just takes everything to the extreme, as far as like experimentation and violence and like sexuality and just just all of that just pushed to the max,
For sure.
which I think and I saw this movie for the first time as a person in the 2020s, and I was shocked by some of the things I saw. But then you think audiences in the 1970s,
Right, they have
they
not
must have
been
been
accustomed
nuts.
to
Yeah,
seeing
I mean,
that.
like
Yeah.
what?
For
I
sure.
mean, that would have been. I mean, no wonder they banned it in all these
Yeah, I
countries.
mean, it was
and
so new. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you had not seen anything like that before.
yeah.
So.
I think, and I was looking at what was it? It was like Wikipedia or something, saying like this country couldn't show it until like this year or whatever, And there's one country, I forgot what country, like Malaysia or something, that didn't even have a screening of the movie until like last year.
Wow.
For the first time
Hey,
ever.
50th year anniversary though.
Yeah, there you go. So, but it's just like, it's still just such like a controversial, all the like the the violence and just everything in there is just
Right.
still to this day. But back in 1971,
It's
it was
pretty
just,
extreme,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I know not everyone can really, like, I guess, digest it in the same way,
Mhm.
Especially for some people it could potentially be triggering, especially at the beginning there with
Yeah.
all the
Oh yeah.
sexual violence.
Yeah.
Obviously that's kind of on a case-by-case basis whether the audience member can, like,
Mhm.
I guess, stomach it.
Yeah.
But, like, but even that notwithstanding, I feel like it's just such a great film. If you can get beyond that, it's a masterpiece.
It is.
really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Go ahead.
My we watched it with my sister
Yeah.
in my dorm. She's
Oh,
not
really?
a fan. She's not a fan. My mom's not a fan. But it's art.
It is
Yeah.
art. It really is
Yeah.
art.
I mean, it's a piece of cinematic history.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
you can't deny that. So.
But it is
I had a
pretty
question for you guys about this. Like, how would you think audiences would react if this movie was released today? You know, since audiences have changed so much since the 70s, obviously.
Yeah, see, in some ways, I feel like society as a whole, or like just people that watch movies,
Mhm.
are more used to stuff like this.
Oh, yeah,
certain
definitely.
things. But then again, on a societal level, I think there are some things in the film that might not just be the violence that still just would not have gone over at all.
Oh yeah.
So just like
Especially-
certain themes and stuff.
Especially in today's like cultural climate too.
Yeah,
You know, like if you
absolutely.
think about like the portrayal of women in this movie, you know, there's
Yeah.
especially would not fly
Mhm.
Nah.
in today's cultural climate.
I think we'd be more acclimated to the violence, but perhaps a lot more critical about the
Oh,
sexuality.
yeah,
of the
definitely.
film.
I think that's what I was
Yeah.
getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say too, like, how well does it hold up today? Do you guys think?
I mean, it's a masterpiece. Honestly, I think it holds up very well.
I think the only thing keeping it from being one of those like cinema classics that people just hear about all the time
Yeah.
is just the sheer amount of violence. I mean, you know, like you
Yeah.
take another Stanley Kubrick classic like The Shining, everyone knows what The Shining is.
Yeah.
I would say not as many people know it about A Clockwork Orange,
Mhm.
but it's right up there. It's just the only thing keeping it from being right up there is just the violence.
And
So,
just like the extreme that it pushes
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
like it's
Yeah,
super
I would
shocking.
agree with that. So is there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about that you really want to just like get out there about this movie?
Oh man.
No, yeah, kind of flip on the spot now, but it's a great movie. I definitely recommend watching it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not, as I said before, I'm not as much of a film scholar as you two gentlemen. But I don't know. When Sachal put it on last semester, I really didn't know what to expect. But I walked away and I was like, you know what? That was something special right there.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I think my life's definitely been enriched by the fact that I've seen this movie.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think this is probably my most rewatched movie.
Really?
I'm very it's like I said, it's very visually appealing.
Yeah.
Like it is, and visually captivating too.
Oh, yeah.
Like you just
I
want
would
to,
agree.
you know, it's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you guys too, like, I mean, obviously you guys would recommend this movie, but who would you recommend it to? Because obviously this movie is not for just all the casual movie watchers out there.
Yeah, maybe not the family gathering.
Not something to put on like Christmas time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I might be pushing it. I don't know. I feel like, you know, if someone is interested in film, there's definitely a lot to be
Yeah, I was
gained
gonna
from
say
it.
anyone that really wants to dive into that
Mhm.
route, I would say should definitely watch it
Mhm.
because it does a lot of really nuanced ideas in cinema that again weren't really the norm for the time.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and yeah, I totally agree with that too. You know, someone who's interested in learning more about like past cinema influences, you know, how we got to where we are today, and just like, you know, and Stanley Kubrick is one of the most famous directors. You know, just as like almost like a piece that you can study. You know.
Mhm.
Well, you wrote an essay about it in high school.
Yeah, I
too.
did.
Oh, wow.
I wrote an essay about basically about what you said about the like capturing your free will,
Mhm.
but still being kind of being good, but without the choice, and
Right.
and whether that is moral or not.
Mhm.
There's a lot to take from them.
Oh, yeah,
for
definitely.
sure. Yeah, a lot of themes.
I think that really ties into, like, if you're going to talk about, you know, obviously the modern day influence, obviously there's kind of an ongoing debate about, like, imprisonment is like a means of rehabilitation or as a means of punishment. There's definitely a lot that you could say about how this film kind of represents, you know, that argument as well.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, there's so much to unpack about this movie. We could sit here and talk for hours, going through every little thing. which I mean, like, that's something that I really appreciate about this movie, having seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because my feelings have changed a lot about the movie, just from like watching, just finished watching it, and I was like, I don't know about this movie, and then, but there's just so much to unpack that that isn't true with a lot of other movies, I think.
How do you feel about it now, Mike?
I would
Coming back around to it?
I would say, I mean, this isn't a movie that I would watch like for enjoyment, I would say.
It's a shame.
Probably.
Watch it for
I know you guys are totally disappointed with it. But I can totally just like appreciate like Kubrick's craft and just like the everything that just makes it like part of film history.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is like undeniable, about this movie. So, well, thank you guys for coming on the show.
Of course.
I really had a fun time talking about this movie and unpacking it and all the themes and everything that that comes with that. And thank you guys for watching. Keep an eye out for the next episode that'll be coming out in 2 weeks. And we'll see you guys later.